Ryen Russillo, The Ringer, Ryen Russillo podcast, very popular. All right, I was saying about Chicago. I'm going to be positive. I like their tight end or receiver. I like their tackle. Their running backs are okay. I think their secondary is okay. Montez Sweat. They have a leadership problem. Not all bad teams have the same problem. I like Arizona's quarterback. I hate their roster. I like the Giants coach. I don't like their quarterback. I think Chicago's got pieces. I just want an offensive coach and a quarterback. So I think the Bears are going to win games, Ryan. This is a long question. So they're out. They're going to win a couple more games. They have to pray Carolina keeps losing to get one of these quarterbacks. They're going to get a new coach and a new quarterback, right? Do we agree on the Bears there? Do you see some positivity? Because I just think it's a coach-quarterback issue. Do you?
I think you're giving them a little bit too much credit on the rest of the talent as far as the roster's concerned. Because we just recently did an exercise where McShay and I were going through the most talented player in all teams and then trying to figure out. And look, they've got a really good quarter in Johnson. DJ Moore's terrific. Kmet looks really good at tight end. The running back thing is all kind of interchangeable, and there's a couple guys on the line, but there's not much depth. So I don't know where you think they're going to be competitive the rest of the way, because I think what's happening with Bajan is it's like a fun story. And I mean, they scored 16 points last night and, almost went to overtime with the worst team in the NFL. So yeah. I don't think there's a ton here that you're going, there's all of these, every team has a few guys that you probably like. So the quarterback, no question will be a different guy because they still have the fifth-year option decision on Fields. I don't really see Fields as somebody that wanted to be a backup to another young guy after he was supposedly in charge of this franchise. So I agree with you on the turnover, but the higher pick still very well could be the one that they own from themselves. And look, when you look at that entire trade for Carolina moving it up, and they put the graphic up last night, you're reminded of hey, they did really well on this trade, and there's still some pieces there to come. But I still think it's probably a bottom 5 talent NFL roster.
So I just said this about Denver. It's hard to unsee stuff, and they were so bad in September, they're actually the last 3 weeks doing some really good things. Similarly to Buffalo. I watched them for 3 years. They were just avalanche. They just blow people out. But if you watch them now, they've just lost too many players. They're not a great team. I don't think they're a top 4 or 5 team in the AFC. I am selling my stock, and I like McDermott, but I said this week, my entire life, Ryan, there are coaches that organize stuff. Chuck Knox, Marty Schottenheimer, McDermott. But they don't have vision. And at some point, the Andy Reids, the Walshes, I look at Buffalo and I'm like, I don't buy McDermott anymore. I think they just hit a total ceiling. Am I wrong?
I think they've lost 5 projected starters on defense, and this offensive criticism, I don't understand it. Now, you want to tell me Allen still turns the ball over a little bit too much? Fine. You want to bookend from the start of his career that he has more turnovers than everybody else since 18? You win. But they're a top 5 offense still. Every time I hear them talked about it, I'm like, wait a minute, let me look at these numbers again. They're 3 in the NFL on yards per play offensively. They're top 5 in total yards, they're top 5 in scoring, and everybody's acting like, they're Russell Wilson last season. So I don't quite understand. Their issue is going to be help and depth on defense. And whenever you start going with some of these Colin theories, you need to explain to me how you can see one coach and be like, vision, no vision. What was it about McDermott where you go, I don't like his vision?
I'll tell you.
I don't like the starters he's lost on defense more than anything else.
Because I think he and Daboll butted heads. Leslie Frazier, kind of a high EQ, low guy, he left. Ken Dorsey, I think he's a very intense guy. A lot of these defensive guys are, and I think he wears people out. And I think guys that burn hot, Harbaugh's a little bit like this. They run hot. They're intense. I think sometimes they butt heads with coordinators. Andy Reid's guys would stay forever. They love him, right? Some guys, coordinators, they stay for. I just feel like this whole Buffalo thing, Cincy's better, Ravens better, Jags better, Chiefs better. I don't buy him anymore. That's my vision argument. Where's the next layer for this? I don't know. You and I disagree. You still like Buffalo a
lot. No, I mean, look. That was a very good answer, by the way. Now I understand what you're actually talking about. If you want to put him 4th right now in the AFC power rankings, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. Baltimore's resume, it's not necessarily like, hey, great win, but they're destroying everybody, and the defense has been terrific, and Lamar's probably looking at his second best season of his career. I listened to you in the Jacksonville thing, which is what I always love when I come on this show. I get like 2 full segments getting ready to go. I think Jacksonville checks a lot of boxes, yet they're kind of not getting the attention. They're drafting behind the excitement of Miami early, the buy-in with the Chiefs that I'll always have, Buffalo. So I think Buffalo is a bit like being held to a higher standard because we felt like they were in the Kansas City and then Cincinnati class of being in the – so I think we're more aligned, but I keep hearing about how bad the offense is when there's very few numbers that would tell you. I'm telling you, losing Milano, losing Jones at D tackle, losing 2 more guys in the secondary, and then we're going to get an update on another guy here. There's too many names that matter that were difference makers on that side of the football that I think is still the more long-term issue for Buffalo this year.
So Victor Wembanyama struggled in New York. I watched the first half. I think the NBA, Denver and Boston feel really good. Then there's a lot of questions. Warriors better, Chris Paul better than we thought. But I want to talk Victor. It's one of these things where I'm so excited. I had this discussion the other night at dinner. I said, what's cool about the NBA and what I love about it, that Russell, Kareem, Michael, Magic, LeBron, Steph are 6 best players ever. They're all completely different players. There's so much artistry to this sport. In the NFL, a lot of guys are in a mold. The best left tackles, the best edge rusher. Russell didn't play like Steph, didn't play like LeBron, didn't play like Magic. And I watch Victor, and I'm like, is he Durant with 4 inches? I don't know. It's just, I haven't seen a lot like it at 1920. What is a realistic take in our space for what he is now and what he will become? What's not a hot take? What's realistic?
Well, all of the takes should be just long-term and what you think he is. Because, the very, very beginning of the season, despite, watching all the stuff leading up to the draft and everything, we've just never seen anything like this before. We just haven't. Okay, so there's that part of it. So the allure, the excitement, we love new more than the same because we always think like new could be something we've never seen before. And in this case, like we do it with all sorts of quarterbacks. We do it with 6'6" guys in the NBA draft. And in this case, like, no, this is really something we've never ever seen before. But the thing I've been cautious about, which is not a long-term projection, but I would say right now when I watch him offensively, it can be awkward at times.
Yeah.
The perimeter dudes that are built this way, that are this big, like it's exciting to see him handle. And the way he gets into his shot, Colin, it's like he's a shooting guard or a small forward. It's incredible how smooth it can be, but it also can be a little awkward when he decides to put it on the deck. And that's why Durant, of the unicorns of this era, like Durant's the one guy on the dribble at maybe 7 feet where he was really hard to stay in front of. So I like that Wembanyama tries a bunch of different things. I looked at the Phoenix game being like, dude, he's going to get 20 a game for his career if he just ran the floor. Forget the pull-up threes. Forget breaking guys down off the dribble. He'll catch and shoot and get into the shot immediately. He did it against Phoenix on a flash cut to the free throw line where I was like, that's ridiculous. The guy defending him was so late on it because he thought, like, nobody's ever supposed to do that at his size. So as far as, like, what he could be, I don't know that anybody can define that. No one could say, well, he'll only be this or he can be that. Like I'm excited about what feels like an unlimited ceiling, but and this sounds ridiculous, 9 games into it. But when he's talked about as one of the greatest prospects in the history of the game, to pay off on that excitement, you have to then be an offensive player who has the ball in your hands at the end of a shot clock in a huge playoff game, Western Conference Finals, NBA Finals, and you're creating and getting the best look that your team has.
Yeah. And
I think at this point, like there's still nights where it doesn't feel as smooth, which does not impact me thinking he'll be incapable of doing that later on.
Finally, Michigan. So my tact has been, this is an outdated rule. But
what have you been doing? You just decided I'm going to be this guy on this topic, right?
No, it's my take is you can't go from you didn't know something was a law or a rule to be outraged by it the next day. Nobody even knew about this. And now everybody's like, this is outrageous. No, time out. You didn't know it existed. Okay, so don't go from you didn't know it existed to this is the worst thing I've ever heard. It's scouting. Everybody kind of does it. I've said everybody speeds on the 405 in L.A. We all go 75. Jim's in a Maserati going 108. It's a little over the top. But don't you think it's a little curious that they're going to hand down the punishment before the Penn State game? Doesn't it feel like they just don't like Harbaugh? It's a little personal. You could deliver this Sunday, Monday. Doesn't it feel a little weird they're delivering it reportedly today?
Yeah, it does. Because normally when I look at, especially when it comes to college athletics, because it can kind of just make it up, because there's no like one supposed governing body where they could be in charge of this whole thing. I would feel like, especially with the run of SEC success, the Big Ten feeling like they have like 2 real chances at it this year,
Right.
Ohio State, Michigan, that they'd be like, maybe we'll just worry about this a little bit later and not disrupt potentially 2 teams getting into the playoff. I know that'd be kind of difficult with the way the rest of the conference is playing out, but there's still time. Or denying at least Michigan here, that in some eyes is the best team in football, but I'd like to see the resume be a little bit better. Normally, the conference would be a little bit more self-serving about it.
Yes.
So I'm surprised because I would have thought, hey, they're out here as we can't do the most thorough investigation. We can't feel good about handing out any punishment until the season's over. So why don't you guys just go ahead and play in the playoffs?
Right.
And we'll see if the Big Ten can get one of these. That's kind of what I thought would happen. So I guess they deserve credit for not doing that. I'll admit, when it comes to cheating stories, I get bored of them pretty quickly. And this one was kind of fun. Like, I think my favorite development was when it was reported that Stallions had said, like, look, I did all this. I was a rogue agent here, and none of those guys even knew what I was doing. And then there's the video of him next to Harbaugh with this sheet. And I can just imagine, like, if that were true, Harbaugh turning to somebody else being like, hey, that guy, whatever his name is, he's good at this. Like, man, get him a jacket. So I don't get outraged about cheating, but I would agree that I think much like the Astros thing, where Astros fans, supporters, players couldn't just say, hey, everybody's been stealing signs. Like, okay. But there was kind of an understood limit to how far you could go with it.
Yeah.
And if all of these allegations are true, which, again, I kind of lose track of it every single day because it's incredibly political. Okay, it's completely political. Ohio State fans would be just as defensive if any of this were reversed. No one would care. None of that stuff even matters. Everybody loses all their moral compass because they're emotional about the outcomes of these games. But to your original point, yeah, I'm a little surprised, or maybe that means the punishment isn't going to derail what's available for the players and what we still think is a really good football team for this season.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.